Persistent as you're consistent will get you to your goal. How many of you have ever been so focused on a goal that you actually got in the way of yourself? I know that's happened to me a lot because I remember when I first started in this personal growth industry back in 2018. I wanted to read more. That's it. That's all I had. That's the desire I wanted. I simply wanted to read more because at that time I was a dyslexic who was shy and who only read maybe an average of one book a year. I wanted to read more. A statistic came across, wasn't motivational or anything, but it said 95% of CEOs read 50 or more books a year. And I thought that would be really cool to be a CEO and a business owner. But ain't no way, dude. Ain't no way I'm reading 50 books. 12, on the other hand, a book a month didn't seem too bad. In my mind, though, I said I wanted to reach 50 eventually. I want to hit 12 right now. And the only way to get that is to take a book off of my bookshelf, to open the page of chapter one and start reading. That was the only journey forward that I could see. So that's what I did. Went over to the bookshelf, grabbed a little purple book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, opened to chapter one, and started reading. And over the next couple months, I only read a few books. And I knew that if I kept doing it, I'd be able to reach 12. But there'd be no way for me to reach that 50 that I really wanted to. Halfway through that journey, a friend came up to me and we were talking about our goals. And I shared with him, yeah, I'm wanting to read these 12 books by the end of the year. He's like, dude, had you heard of Audible? And I'm like, no, what's that? He said, the books that you're reading, they read them to you. All you got to do is listen. So he logged me into his account on my phone, said, dude, listen to a couple books. And if it works for you, get your own account and start doing it that way. And I'm like, sweet. So I started listening to books. I turned my car into a library. Ain't no music, ain't no silence. I was just solely focused on reaching these 12. Even during the nighttime, where it was for gaming and watching videos, I switched that to then be for reading. And I eventually reached the 12 book mark and surpassed it to reading 50 books in a year. Now, I've come across this idea that has really helped me out, which is when it comes to decision, which in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich book is the principle right before persistence. Because before you are persistent in anything, and let's just define that, okay? Let's just be super clear. Being persistent simply means that you're doing what you say you're going to do. That's what it comes down to. That you're just consistent in whatever it is you want to do. Decision, you got to decide on what you want to do in order to be consistent in doing the thing you want to do. Is that fair to say? So if that's the case, you got to be decisive and choose a goal, a desire, your vision, your northern star, your finish line, whatever you want to call it. You decide on that. For me, it was reading those 12 books. But then there's a difference between being decisive and being stubborn, which is if you are stubborn, you have the goal in mind and that's solid. But the path going forward, there is a single path to take. You know the best path. You think that's the perfect path and that's the only way to do. No deviating. If something's in the way, you just barrel through the wall, trying to get to that destination just by going in a straight line. But that's the way to be able to get burnt out. That's the way to make things feel impossible. And that's the way when people make these New Year's resolutions saying, I'm going to go work out, so I'm going to go get a gym membership. That's why a couple weeks later, they ain't at the gym anymore, but it still shows up on their credit card statement because they are being stubborn simply because they are seeing the journey as a single route to take. But winners and champions know that the route you take is going to change, but the goal will never change. Let me say that again. Winners know that the route you take is going to change, but the goal will never change. So the ones who are decisive, the ones who make a decision and actually achieve it, are the ones who are rock solid with what they want, but the today, the daily actions, the weekly steps, the monthly goals, the 90-day sprints, whatever it is, they know they're going to adapt and adjust. Just like driving a car. If you go from your house to Walmart, you point your car to Walmart, you hit the gas pedal and start going, I can guarantee you're going to hit a building. So how do you get there? You turn on the roads, you stop at the stoplights, you wait for the pedestrians, you speed up when the speed limit gets faster, and then eventually, after all those things together, you get to Walmart. That's what we need to be doing with the things that we're wanting. Because if we make a decision on a goal, how do we be persistent? How do we be consistent in what we're doing? It's about solidifying what we truly want, but being adaptable in the steps and the ways to get there. One of the things that I love teaching people that I work with is my 2% rule, which my 2% rule is if your goal is 100%, the 2% rule is 2% action every single day to get to the goal. For me and reading those 12 books, my 2% action, which what got me out of my comfort zone so I can grow and learn, but also small enough to where it was still able, I was still able to do it, was to go pick a book and starting to read chapter 1. As I went along that journey, then I got to the point to where I don't just want to read 12. The ultimate goal, the big one, was to read 50. And as I shared it with people, one of my friends came up and was like, dude, do you know about Audible? You can listen to books. And there was a decisive moment that I had to choose. I had to choose if I was going to be stubborn and continue down the path of only reading paper books, or truly understand what my goal was, which my goal with reading 50 books was to be able to be a different person at the end of those 50 books. It is never about the end goal, ultimately. It is about the person who you become when you reach that point. So I had that realization that I wanted to be a different person when I reached that point. And it was more important for me to be able to get the information than to simply, from this one stranger that I had, say that you can only read paper books to be able to achieve reading these 12, reading these 50 books in a year. No, I decided that it's not just paper, but it's also listening. And it could also be watching videos to be able to get there because I simply wanted the information to be different at the end. Just like as I grew up with dyslexia, so many people see it as a negative, but that is just this one path. The other path is the empathy, the creativeness, the out of the box thinking, the pattern recognition, all these all these great things that also come with dyslexia. There are so many paths to take. And so I get to choose the path. And you champions with the things that you're doing, you get to choose the path. Now, all that's dandy. We make a decision. Cool. We want to go one route. Awesome. Now we know there's many routes that we can take along the journey. Cool. So Willie, what the heck? What the heck do we do next? What is the next step on being this persistent self to be consistent every day? The next step after getting clear is to step on the gas pedal. It's to just start going because the perfect plan ain't going to be there. The perfect way to go through the wall of limitations, of going around the stresses of anxiety and fears of failure, of public speaking, of whatever it is that you have to go through. The best thing to do is to hit the step on the gas pedal and to start driving that car. And how do you do that? One of the best ways that works for me, especially in those moments where I don't feel motivated, because I'm sure a lot of us feel that way. When I don't feel motivated to do something, I break it into the smallest component possible because I can do small things for a small time. That is very easy for me to do. And it seems like with the people I've worked with and people I've talked with, that is very easy for them to do. That if we break it down to something really simple, it's easy. It just gets done. We're able to do it. So from what I've learned from my life, there's this thing called 1 minute, one thing. So if you are lacking in motivation, lacking in the need to be consistent, let's break it down into the simplest of things. 1 minute, one thing is pick a single thing you can do for 1 minute, 60 seconds that helps out with whatever you want. So, for example, I know that this principle came from me having to clean the house. I was sitting on my chair, swiping on social media, looking around, seeing all the clothes, all the trash, had no idea what else the was going on in the house, and I just knew it needed to get clean. And if any of you know, especially you parents out there, what Mount Saint laundry is, yeah, we had about 3 of those in our house. The best thing for me to do in that point was to pick one thing to pick up for 1 minute with 0 expectation after of having to clean up the rest of the stuff. I said, "That sounds reasonable." So I chose the trash. So, went around, picked up the trash for 1 minute, put it in the trash can, done. And this strange phenomenon happened. When I started to move my body physically, I felt more motivated to start cleaning more. So then after that 1 minute, I thought, okay, now I could do a minute and start picking up the dirty clothes that are in this room. So I picked up the dirty clothes and threw and put them in the laundry hamper. And then I felt a little bit more motivated. And I said, okay, I guess I can spend 3 minutes doing the dishes. So then I went and did the dishes. And over, it's stacked to where then I was able to clean up my place. When it comes to our desires and the goals that we want, when we make that decision on the things that are on our vision board, the things that are our dreams, breaking it down to the smallest thing that we can do today is going to help you be persistent in the long run, which another word for persistent is consistent. So if you want to be consistent in the long run, break it down into the smallest thing possible. If you want to speak on more stages, simply grab your phone, hit record for 1 minute, sharing something inspirational. If you want to be a YouTuber, jump on your laptop for a minute, put in your email, and create a YouTube channel. If you want to work out, do push ups for a minute or planks. If you want to gain more knowledge, find a motivational video on YouTube for that's a minute long that you can watch and be like, cool, I learned a little bit today. Whatever it is for you, break it down to the smallest components because as you break it down to bite size, you're able to be that consistent self. And you will then learn the skill of being persistent. Persistent as you're consistent will get you to your goal.